Welcome back to A1 Storyteller, where we bring you stories that will leave you on the edge of your seat. In today's tale, we're diving into a dramatic sequence of events that starts with an unjust arrest and escalates to a courtroom showdown that no one saw coming. Brace yourself for a roller coaster of emotions as we uncover what happens when justice is put to the test. Stay tuned until the very end, because what happens next will shock you to your core. Let's get into it. It was just another ordinary day on the busy streets of downtown. The sun had just begun to dip behind the skyscrapers, casting a golden hue over the city. But for one man, that evening would be anything but ordinary. Tyrone Jackson, a respected local business owner, had no idea that his life was about to take an unexpected turn. Tyrone had built a name for himself over the years. He'd worked hard to get to where he was, fighting against the odds and climbing the ladder of success. But on this day, as he walked down the street after visiting his bank, he would face an encounter that would shake him to his very core. A squad car pulled up beside him, the sirens wailing as it screeched to a halt. Two officers, both white, jumped out, their eyes scanning Tyrone from head to toe. Without any explanation, they began to question him. "What are you doing here?" one of the officers barked. Tyrone, confused and startled, tried to respond calmly. "I'm just walking to my car," he said. But the officers weren't listening. They didn't want to hear his side. Instead, they started accusing him of loitering and of being involved in a string of local burglaries. Tyrone was taken aback. He had never been in trouble with the law before. "I'm not doing anything wrong," Tyrone said, his voice steady but filled with disbelief. But the officers weren't having it. They grabbed him by the arms, twisting them behind his back. "You're coming with us," one officer sneered. The scene quickly attracted a crowd of bystanders. Some took out their phones, capturing the unfolding drama. The tension in the air was palpable. Tyrone knew his rights, but these officers seemed determined to escalate the situation. Despite his protests, they shoved him into the back of the squad car and sped off toward the police station. The arrest made headlines within hours. The video of the incident, recorded by several witnesses, spread like wildfire on social media. The public outrage was swift and intense. People were demanding answers. How could this happen? Why was Tyrone being treated like a criminal when he was doing nothing more than walking home? As the news of the arrest spread, so did the speculation. Some believed Tyrone was a victim of racial profiling. Others questioned whether the officers had been too quick to act without understanding the situation. The police department issued a statement claiming the arrest was justified, citing a supposed witness who had identified Tyrone as the suspect in a recent string of burglaries. But the details were murky, and the public wasn't buying it. Tyrone's lawyer, Marcus Bryant, a seasoned attorney with a reputation for taking on high-profile cases, was ready to fight for his. The courtroom was packed. Tyrone sat at the defense table, flanked by his lawyer, Marcus Bryant, and several family members. The atmosphere was tense as the trial was about to begin. On the other side, the prosecution, led by District Attorney Karen Monroe, was preparing to argue their case. The officers who had arrested Tyrone, Officer Daniels and Officer Harris, sat in the witness stand, their faces set in stone. Both were confident that their actions had been justified, but Tyrone's defense team wasn't going to let them off that easily. The courtroom went quiet as Marcus Bryant stood up to cross-examine Officer Daniels. "You claim that Mr. Jackson was loitering," Marcus began, "but is there any evidence to support that accusation?" Officer Daniels shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "We had a report of suspicious activity in the area," he said, his voice strained. "And Mr. Jackson fit the description of the suspect." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "A description? Was it specific?" he asked. Officer Daniels hesitated, then responded, "No, not really. It was just a general description. Tall, black male wearing a jacket." The crowd shifted, murmurs spreading like wildfire through the room. Marcus's next question hit harder. "So you're telling us that you arrested Mr. Jackson based on a vague description with no concrete evidence? Is that what you're claiming?" Officer Daniels stammered, clearly rattled. "We had a reasonable suspicion," he said, but his words lacked conviction. The defense attorney wasn't done. He turned to Officer Harris. "You were with Officer Daniels during the arrest. Did you hear Mr. Jackson's side of the story? Did you give him a chance to explain himself?" Officer Harris paused before answering. "We were just following protocol," he said. "Protocol?" Marcus's voice rose. "Was it protocol to ignore a man's rights and escalate a situation that didn't need to be escalated?" The courtroom fell into a stunned silence. Even the judge seemed taken aback by the intensity of Marcus's questions. The defense wasn't just questioning the officer's actions. They were making a powerful argument that Tyrone had been unfairly targeted, that his rights had been violated. And as the trial progressed, it became clear that the officer's version of events was beginning to unravel. But the real shock came when Marcus presented his next piece of evidence, the video footage from the bystanders' phones. The video, which had gone viral, showed Tyrone being arrested without cause, his calm demeanor in stark contrast to the officer's aggression. The footage was damning. It clearly showed that Tyrone had been wrongfully detained. As the video played in the courtroom, the mood shifted. The gallery was filled with gasps of disbelief. The jury watched intently, and it was clear that the evidence was starting to tip the scales in Tyrone's favor. It was hard to ignore the injustice that had occurred. The following day, the courtroom was packed again. The jury had deliberated overnight, and the tension was palpable. Everyone was waiting for the verdict, wondering how the jury would rule. Would they side with the officers, or would they see the truth of Tyrone's claims? Finally, the judge entered the room, and the courtroom fell silent. The jury had reached a decision. The foreman stood up, holding the verdict in his hand. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Officer Daniels and Officer Harris, guilty of wrongful arrest and violation of civil rights," the foreman announced. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom, followed by a hushed silence. Tyrone's family and supporters erupted in tears and applause, while the officers sat in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the reality of what had just happened. The courtroom had been shaken to its core. But the twists didn't end there. The judge, in a move that stunned everyone, ruled that Tyrone would be compensated for his wrongful arrest and the emotional distress caused. The officers were also ordered to undergo sensitivity training, and the department would face an independent review of its practices. As the judge banged the gavel, Tyrone stood up, his heart pounding. He had won, not just for himself, but for all those who had been unjustly targeted by law enforcement. The courtroom erupted into applause once more, this time in support of Tyrone's victory. Outro. What a twist, right? Just when it seemed like the case was going in one direction, everything changed in the courtroom. Tyrone Jackson's story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of standing up for justice, and that truth always has a way of coming to light. Thank you for watching this incredible story on A1 Storyteller. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and always remember, justice will find its way.